And we're live. Said it first for the first time in weeks. We got a fun, let me fix this real quick. We got a fun game for you today. Fun for us, actually fun for you, not fun for us at all. We are going to stuff marshmallows down our mouth. As you see, we have a whole bowl of marshmallows. If we need more, I have an extra pack.
We're not going to need more.
We're not going to need more. And the way it works, here are the rules, okay? No chewing.
Okay.
No chewing. No, that's it. No chewing.
Okay.
That's it.
Easy rules.
Whoever can hold the most marshmallows in their mouth wins. It's as simple as that.
What do I win?
This banana.
Okay.
That's rot now.
Okay.
So, okay, cool. We have a trash bag to spit it in afterwards because it's going to be very, very hard to hold in our mouth. I'm gonna warn you now, I will probably gag because it's not something that I enjoy to do. I'm not even a fan of marshmallows in the first place, yet alone the texture and just, You ready? You want to go first?
Okay, so are we not going at the same time?
No.
Okay.
Ready? Okay, go. Actually, let's go at the same time.
Okay.
All right, 1, ready? Oh, I hate it. I hate it. Wow. Mm. 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 Hmm? Mm. Mm-hmm.
I did 3.
Mm.
So I think Solly got the extra large marshmallows.
Okay. That was a lot shorter than I thought it was. Okay, because look, I saw this on YouTube, and someone fit like 15 or 16, maybe because they got smaller ones.
Same size?
These are normal-sized marshmallows, though.
These are big marshmallows.
Regardless, I won. I got 4, you got 3.
That's not fair. You're older than me.
They're not good. Like, why do people like marshmallows? Anyways, I hope you enjoyed that useless minute of your life. But that was supposed to be much more intense, and it wasn't. I apologize. Anyways, to the message this week. We got a mixer, a different one than we normally do. I want to talk to you about grief and sorrow and how we as Christians can deal with grief and sorrow. Karen, you want to scoot in just a little bit more so you're in the camera? Many people, okay, even though they're Christians, have seen grief and sorrow as such a natural part of life that they haven't even questioned those emotions. Some young men and women have lived for several years grieving over the loss of a loved one, and it's sad. And someone who died in an accident or from sickness or some other means. In any way, right? Death is just sad to us. Others live in sorrow over a boyfriend or a girlfriend or someone who broke their heart or something that might have happened in one of their relationships. But still others just can't seem to get over the feeling of being sorry for themselves. So you have people who are grieving for all those reasons I just mentioned, people who are just, feeling sorry for themselves, feeling like it only affects them and it's all about them. And feeling bad could even be with your grades, like, having sorrow about your grades or the way you think you look, how fat you are, how skinny you are, how whatever you are. But grief and sorrow, the reality is, are dangerous, dangerous things. They're not just innocent emotions like almost every other emotion. They are a part of a devastating demonic bombardment Jesus took on himself when he died on the cross. So when he died on the cross, that was the definition of grief and sorrow. It overflooded him, and we saw that in his prayer right before he died. He bore grief and sorrow so that we, as Christians, wouldn't have to. If they came knocking on your door, sorry, the marshmallows.
Do you want water?
Yeah, let me drink this real quick. If grief and sorrow came knocking on your door, remember that they are not innocent emotions. They are deadly enemies that Jesus has already carried away for you. 1 Thessalonians 4:13-14 says, brothers and sisters, we do not want you to be uninformed. I was going to say uniformed. Uninformed about those who sleep in death, those who die, right? So that you don't grieve like the rest of mankind who have no hope. For we believe that Jesus died and rose again, and so we believe that God will bring with Jesus those who have fallen asleep in him. So, what do we do when we are confronted by grief and by sorrow? Karen, it's not actually a question. It's setting myself up. I'm about to answer it. You ready? Number one, okay? First, we have to realize that grief and sorrow is actually subjective. It is different, meaning it is different for every person. Grief and sorrow is not an objective emotion to where I have grief, I have sorrow, and it looks exactly the same way that Karen has grief and Karen has sorrow. It's not like that. We have to realize it's subjective for everyone. For example, let's say someone who is in the US is going through some pain because his or her parents just got a divorce, okay? That pain could actually be the same type of level of pain as a child in a different third world country that is starving to death. And now, obviously one is more extreme than the other. One, he's about to die, the child. The other one is just, it's still sad, but it's a divorce. But because sorrow and grief is subjective, both people can be feeling the same type of pain, or the same type of level of pain, I should say, at the same time in different situations. We are not the ones who decide who is in more grief or who is in more sorrow. That is not our job. So therefore, because grief and sorrow are subjective to each person, we must treat everybody, everybody, especially non-Christians, with compassion, no matter the type of grief or sorrow they have. Also, as Christians, we can't assume that all non-believers deal with grief and sorrow the same way we should, right? We should approach any situation that has grief and sorrow with caution, since we are not only dealing with emotions, but we're dealing with deadly emotions and our deadly enemy. And it's emotions that can ruin someone's life or completely lead them into severe depression. So Karen, do you have an example of, like what I just said, of those two different people? Do you have another example that maybe in real life? Or
Yeah, I know two examples that I can talk about that are, I think, relevant. Also might be relevant to you guys. The first one is how parents grieve when their children go off to college or get married. That's a form of grief because the parents feel like they almost lost their child because they don't live with them anymore. They're not their children anymore. They're independent. So that parents feel that. So when you're going off to college, or if you're already in college, and you realize maybe some of your family members have been acting a little weird, maybe more controlling, or even more distant than usual, that's because they're grieving. Another more extreme example in our eyes is a family member dying.
Yeah.
And while one of them sounds more extreme, in the moment, that person feels like that's the worst thing that could ever happen to me.
True.
So like Solly said, it's not fair to say, oh, well, at least no one died. That's not a compassionate response. It's not a loving response. Should treat everyone like they're having the worst day ever.
And we should treat not only them like that, but we should treat their emotions like that. We should be attacking the grief and the sorrow and try to help them recover. We're not just pitying people. We're not just sympathizing with people and just sitting there for hours and that's it. All right, got to go home. No, we're there to try to not fix their problem, but take their grief and their sorrow away from them, even if it just means spending time with them. And so that's the key, is how do we get rid of grief and sorrow? So the first thing is got to realize what Karen just explained. The second thing is we have to cast our worries on Christ. Hold up. Most cliche statement ever in our Christianese language, right? We have to learn how to cast our grief and sorrow on Christ. Like 1 Peter 5 says, 1 Peter 5:7 says, cast all your anxiety on him because he cares for you. Such a beautiful verse. Now, how do we actually do this? Because no one actually preached this message has actually helped me when they just say that verse and then boom, go home, right? This doesn't actually help. Well, as Christians, we actually make this verse sound extremely easy to follow, but it's difficult. It takes time. The first step is to be in constant remembrance that Christ can ease our pain by taking our grief and sorrow away from us. So we have to remember constantly that he has the ability to do that. Simply just remember that he has the ability to do that. This takes time, since we have to constantly rewire, remember neuroplasticity, we have to rewire the way we think and the way we feel whenever we are feeling down. We have to remember we can't instantly go to that thought when we're sad, or instantly go to this thought when we're anxious, or that, we have to completely stop our tracks and sort of put our thoughts into the obedience of Christ. That's another verse, subtweet right there. Woo. Okay. The second step is to live with the idea that our grief and our sorrow has been taken away by Christ, meaning live life normally. Okay, this is hard. This is the hardest part, is that we have to live our day as if whatever we're grieving about or having sorrow about doesn't exist. That is the hardest part about grief and sorrow. Do your normal day-to-day activities. The third step is to pray that verse constantly. God, I am casting my anxieties onto you. Please teach me how to do so. I need relief from my pain. And you repeat this over and over and over again as a prayer to God. So the last thing, short and sweet today, the last thing I have for you is we got to have hope. Okay, as Christians, we pride ourselves with the amount of hope we have because we have a God that promises many things in which he has never failed, right? So our hope is on something solid. It's not just imaginary hope. We have hope because God has had promises in which promises that have happened and they have never failed. And because of that, we continue to have more hope. So obviously, don't live like someone who doesn't have any hope. You're a Christian. I'm a Christian. We're believers together. You know that Jesus died for you and for me. That should give us every ounce of hope in every single situation. He whipped those deadly enemies once and for all. It doesn't have to happen again. He doesn't have to come back down and die again. Okay, it's not going to happen the same way. So start a new way of living today, because grief and sorrow actually have no business in your life. They'll be there all the time when something tragic happens. Our goal is to get it out as fast as humanly or godly possible. 2 Corinthians 4:18 says, so we fix our eyes on what is seen, but on what is so we fix our eyes not on what is seen, but on what is unseen. Since what is seen is temporary, but what is unseen is eternal. It's a very complicated verse. Read it on your own. It's 2 Corinthians 4:18. Well, just from this topic, what I want to take from it is remember that we do not always have the full picture of what's going on. Remember that we cannot see everything that is going on in the ether, right? Everything just behind us. Everything in the unseen. Remember that we can't see the chessboard that God is playing on with the enemy. We cannot see his strategic moves. We can't see why this has happened or that has happened, or I don't want to get into specific examples, but we can't understand these things. We can't see them. So we have to find distractions in our day-to-day that would remind us to keep our eyes on him throughout everything that happens. Karen, do you have any idea of what distractions or anything we can do to help us cope with this?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of healthy ways that we can help ourselves deal with grief. And I think people deal with grief differently, and that's okay.
Mm-hmm.
But just some things that have also personally helped me when I have dealt with grief was like exercising, for example. That's like a great way to help your mind. So you're distracted for a little bit. And also when you exercise and you move your body, like that helps like your brain and your blood flow, and statistics show that you're happier.
This is why I have Karen. I got to get out of the, spiritual mindset real quick and talk practical, right? I'm over here saying Christ died for you and therefore you have no grief or sorrow. She's over here saying move your feet so you can get rid of your But it's true. Okay.
It's a great balance. Psychology and God.
Yeah.
Because also God helped us think with our brains and move with our body. Another thing is reading books.
Hmm.
I remember when I was in high school, I would read books all day, and I don't recommend that. I recommend that you have friends and you have a social life. But I would read like even like fiction books. Also, Christian fiction books exist.
They do.
And
I
it's
remember
really
we
cool.
read one together. I kind of backed out halfway through, but
Yeah.
we read one together that was about like a game show or like a talent show.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember that. Sorry.
Yeah, Christian fiction books exist. And also they're like in your public library for free. Just sign up.
And I want to interrupt real quick. For those who don't like reading, like this guy, okay? Audible. Not just Audible, but iBooks or whatever they're called. Your audiobooks,
Yeah,
okay?
audiobooks.
Every time I drive, I literally have it on. And it makes it doesn't I feel like I retain the information more than actually reading it because I'm not a good reader, right? For someone like Karen, though, she can retain it more by reading. So doing things to get your mind off it, like Audible, like audiobooks, like the books on your iPhone app, the Android, I'm sure has one.
Mhm.
So just keep
Yeah.
that in mind. Sorry, go ahead.
And one last example, not to sound cliche, but honestly praying. Like Solly said before, I think one of the biggest things that won't help with grief is asking why. Well, why did that happen? Why do I not have this person with me anymore?
Yeah.
Why did I have to move? And like leave my friends? Because that's just gonna make you more sad. And we don't know the full picture. Some things are just out of our control. And sometimes we'll never know why. So that's just gonna make you more sad. So I think trusting God.
Yeah.
Even if it seems like there's no like good side to it, you don't have to think of the good side of it. Just thank God for protecting you from something else, and pray that He's like with you along the day, so you don't feel alone.
I think this is a good spot to end it. So if you guys are struggling, if you have some grief or sorrow going on in your life for whatever reason, it could be as little as something as your grades or as big as something as a loved one dying or something of that sort happening. Remember, there are steps you can take that will allow you to recover properly. Psychological steps, but also spiritual steps. And so hopefully you're getting both sides here from, me being as a pastor and then Karen being a psychologist eventually. So yeah, I'll see you guys next week. I hope you enjoyed this week, and I'm sorry that our marshmallow contest did not go as planned. Bye.